Beardy and the Beast Media Club.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is a placeholder intro song.
Welcome to a very spooky edition of Beardy and the Beast, a spoiler-filled discussion into a piece of media. We will not slip those spoilers a drugged peach to make them forget. We're available here and on many other services listed at beardyandthebeast.com. If you've heard things that go bump in the night, give us a like and a follow, or join us in the discussion in the comments or at our Discord. My name is Drew, and as always, we have fellow loyal vassal to the Goblin King, Devin.
Do some dance magic.
This month we are revisiting films that frightened us as children. Today we're discussing 1986 fantasy adventure Labyrinth. So, Devin, did those goblins manage to spirit you away in the night?
Um, yeah, I would say they did. I'm a big fan of fairy tales, and this definitely has that super fairy tale vibe, and was digging it.
It definitely had that feel.
Yeah.
Even kind of like tonally, maybe not in resolution, it wasn't that dark, but it definitely gave the air.
hmm Yeah, it had a bit of that grim, bit of Alice, bit
Mm-hmm.
of Oz, all kind of thrown in, and I just had like the biggest dumb smile on my face the entire time watching the film. But I guess the more important question is, why'd this spook you as a kid?
Uh, it's so weird because it must have been fully visual.
Mm,
As you know, I don't remember much from before I was like 12, so I only have
mm,
glimpses of being
Yeah.
afraid of this. But the particular scene that I remember is the goblins and the.
Okay.
So originally, I thought the goblins were through the crib,
Mm,
and they like stole away the baby, and I remember that.
yeah.
But I think a lot of the spook probably came from the whole like Lucas Henson collab. What was it called? Practical effects.
Yeah.
Like there was something very real to it, and there was a lot of like tonal and image related things that were actually fairly scary.
Mm,
Like even the helping hands.
yeah, that was kinda
Yeah, there's something like very disturbing about all those helping hands. The little bitey things that they were trying to like torment Ludo with
yeah.
was scary as if.
Yeah. It was, quite I wouldn't say scary for me, it was, like, creepy,
Yeah,
I
they
would
definitely
say.
had like a creep fact. What's really interesting is the comparative tone to what was actually occurring
Mhm.
when they were showing all that.
Yeah.
So if we were to take the crib as the example, goblins under it, it was funny to me now
Yeah.
because they were acting like kind of goofy in the way that they were kind of pleading for say the right words.
Mhm.
But like as a kid, I didn't catch on to that. I
Yeah.
must have been quite young, and I just like saw these scary looking things, and they wanted to steal a baby. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I didn't actually watch this movie till I was quite a bit older.
mm,
Um, so I think I watched this, oh, probably say roughly like a decade, 12 years ago, I think, was the first time I watched it.
mm.
Uh, and so it's interesting because, like, when you're talking about, like, the under the crib stuff like that, there was a couple things that I swore were completely different than they were. So again, I thought there was a little bit more of that with the crib,
Mm.
with them actually, like, stealing the baby away, and I also thought there was more of, a a weird romance plot between her and the Goblin King for some reason.
It was supposed to
I
be like it was
Yeah,
implied, but
there was the
it,
ballroom scene, but I thought I remembered something like him trying to get her to be, like, the Goblin Queen type thing. I
oh
don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I didn't catch any of that. There was definitely like romance subtext,
Yeah.
but I didn't see anything as far as like Goblin Queen. It's pretty
Mhm.
much just Bowie and his Technicolor package.
Oh my god. Yeah, it is. Yep. But we definitely had the full package throughout the entire film.
I
Um,
okay.
never wear gray sweatpants, let alone gray, yoga pants. Keep PSA guys, never do it.
Yeah, unless you're really proud,
Yeah, really
then I might
proud.
just like go for it. Uh no, one thing like before we get back on track here, one thing I really noticed is every time there was like a shorter character, they would make sure that was Bowie was standing next to them so that they did a face shot and Bowie's package would be in the shot. And I'm
Did
like,
they?
I couldn't not notice it. I was like, this has to be intentional. I mean, it was like the 80s. It was
Yeah. Yeah.
entire cast was probably on coke or something.
Yeah. The thing that still throws me off of with Bowie, like outside of the movie, just he's considered punk. And then you listen to songs like Magic Dance. And I'm like, but how is this punk?
I mean, I can't really get
It's,
into it. Like, there's a
yeah,
good book for it.
yeah.
And by I think it's Please Kill Me, the Uncensored Autobiography of. There's a lot of
Okay.
things you wouldn't assume to be
Yeah.
punk rock.
Yeah.
For
I guess
instance,
it's all sorry.
like Blondie's considered punk.
Yeah.
Uh, and in that same scene, freaking what's his name? Campbell's Soup.
Warhol?
Yeah, he was in the
Yeah.
punk scene.
Yeah.
But to get kind of back on track,
Yeah.
as we're continuously getting distracted by Bowie's package. Uh,
Yep.
Another
He's
thing
got the
that
full thing.
would have been entertaining to me as a kid was actually disturbing to me as an adult, and that was the red birds.
I
They
know,
were
right?
like they were taking off their heads, and that was fine, but like the design of them actually had a spook to it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the thing that would chase me down a hallway.
It's funny because I remember noting that that scene looked. I could see that being like the spoopy type
Hmm.
scene again, and it's also the only scene that I noticeably noticed that it was green screened.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, yeah, like I could see like the lines around them. It's like it was like the only scene that I actually noticed that in.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, but again, most of it's practical. It had me going, it's like, but why did they green screen? And I'm guessing there's probably some stop motion with those birds or in the way they did the puppetry for them or something.
Yeah, it might have been much easier to do a green screen, especially with the cables.
Yeah.
Might have been something like they might have even had people in green suits.
Mm, yeah. Like was it Midnight Players or
Hmm.
Famous Players? I think that's what they're called. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could
so it
see
might have
something like
been
that.
like there were some more intricate movements that would.
Yeah.
So that's probably
There was
there was.
only one other part of like digital artistry that special effects that really jumped out at me.
Hmm,
The owl in the opening credits.
I didn't even notice it.
So I'm like, wow, that's very CG. And apparently it was like the first actual like attempt to do something photorealistic with CG because
Oh,
this was 86.
so like super uncanny.
Yeah, it just hit that kind of like it looked like a toy flying around. It didn't look bad per se. It was just noticeable. But that's coming from, and then again a lot of CG nowadays is noticeable too. Remember Jurassic Park? Sorry, get sidetracked on CG.
I do. Objects in mirror. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Overall, it was a weird experience, especially coming to something that frightened me as well because there was a lot of humor to it, even though visual tones and the creatures quite spoopy.
Hmm.
Didn't impact me too much. Like I thought Bowie made the perfect Goblin King.
Yeah.
Like the way he could have been more exuberant, been more flashy.
Mm.
Like his outfits got that way, but it seemed like kind of closed in shoulder rather than chest out. is kind of I kind of felt his acting.
I almost wonder if that is intentional to be that more goblin-y aspect,
Mm,
right? Because I mean, you don't really think of goblins as the tall, completely proud, chest up type creatures.
yes. There's just something about like the acting
Yeah,
that was closed in.
yeah. I found it was interesting with the acting. I found it felt like the opening scene with Sarah and her parents felt very forced.
Oh no, it was super 80s.
Yeah.
It was
Um,
super like
yeah.
everything was overacting.
Yeah.
Um, everyone was doing their own thing, and they weren't vibing.
Yeah. It did get better when it was her and the puppets.
Yes,
So
but she definitely busted out a few Sharon kind of thing. I
yeah.
was like, eh.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, I mean, this is what happens when you get a 15-year-old to play a 15-year-old.
yeah. There's a reason why all those 90s sitcoms hired 30-year-olds to play 15-year-olds.
It's the Dawson.
They was still younger. I'm thinking like Saved by the Bell.
Oh, a lot of things. Yeah, Saved by the Bell was the same thing, and then like with the exception of like the few, like I think when Millie Jovovich was in that, I think she was like she was like younger than they thought she was. She
Oh,
lied to get the part.
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean it's the thing in movies. You have it happens. It's rare to see them actually grab a 15-year-old to play a 15-year-old, and worth noting.
It was definitely like there was some tidbits there. You could see where Connelly would go.
Hmm.
There's definitely some setup, but uh, there was nothing renowned about in Labyrinth.
Yeah, like I know this is one of her earliest roles. I'm not sure if it's considered her breakout role or not. I'm just not familiar with the other couple of movies, a couple things she was in before this. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, there's definitely the inklings there. It's like you can see how she's gone from this to Requiem.
well, I would have really enjoyed to see her reaction to some of these horror creatures. She just like seemed perfectly fine. Like an average day of this selfish child who has to have everything her way and thing affects her.
Yeah.
Sharoning up a storm. And I would have liked for her to show more reaction to kind of the horror being faced with.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, it was a bit odd for her to be the stoic
yeah,
in that case.
like
One thing I
that.
will note.
Oh,
Oh,
I was
I
gonna
was just gonna
say,
say.
I was gonna say, yeah, the helping hands
Mhm.
would have been like terrifying. You're like getting held up and groped by all these like hands that you're falling down a hole, and they just like grab you. You have like a casual conversation with them.
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that, and I think that's one of those things that made me go like connect this to Alice in Wonderland more so than
Mm,
like Wizard of Oz or something because it that felt very Alice in Wonderland to me. She was never. I don't even remember Alice ever really getting terrified or with all of the weird stuff that was going on with her.
oh,
It's
for
just
sure.
more like this is the world. This is how it is. And I mean, she's clearly into that fantasy world. I mean, everything from like the majority of the creatures and like the books she's reading, they're all that world again.
Hmm.
Like so
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, it makes sense from what you're saying. It's if we take it from the Allison one perspective, that kind of portrayal makes a lot more sense.
mhm.
Now that's not a dig at Connolly. Like if she should have reacted more to like craziness around her, That'd probably be like director's hands.
But one of the things I will note with, like, even with, the Sharon levels of some of the acting there, um, I actually noted this down. It was like when she was pleading with the Goblin King right at the beginning. It's like her lines were stiff, but she was her face was showing the emotions well. Like you could see her like almost tearing up while she's pleading for her brother back, that type of thing. Um,
I thought her tone was okay, very 80s.
mhm.
I agree the face matched the portrayed emotion, but I don't think the body followed suit.
Yeah.
Like there was no like it's 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 hard to explain in an audio form, but um there was no proverbial like pulling on the sleeve,
Yeah.
pleading for that, like the body acting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. But and yeah, it's just and that's why he specifically said the face. It's nice to see that that was trying to happen. Um, yeah, that's what I have there. I got distracted. Ignore me. Talk about something. Start a conversation.
you're, you're the only other person here.
Oh, well.
The I think the only acting within this that I was like fully sold on was probably Hoggle.
Mm,
There
yeah,
was
Hoggle was great actually.
yeah, and like as a kid, I would have found Hoggle to be a bit scary,
Yeah.
mostly because the animatronics related facial to the character. But and that's a testament to Jim Henson Company
Yeah.
be able to pull that off because like um and the body and voice acting
Mm,
that role like when he drugs Sarah, like you actually kind of feel for him. It's like you're a jerk, but you regret it already, and you can tell.
yeah. Yeah,
I
he's very good at saying at having his hand forced and conveying that very well.
hmm. It's too bad the acting around him fell short.
Mm.
I guess you could say. I am happy that we didn't end up with a Star Wars moment where only the Wookiee was able to show emotion, and like Ludo was fine.
Yeah,
Ludo was a big dummy and just wanted a friend.
yeah,
Okay, cool. I'll be your friend, Ludo.
yeah.
Guess I can't think of anything else that's too frightening itself.
Mhm.
Mostly because it is strongly rooted in a fairy tale style.
Yeah,
Everything that is actually frightening about it, we already kind of discussed.
yeah.
There was kind of a lost message on me for the film itself.
Alright.
Like, as near as I could tell, it was growing into an adult and beginning to look beyond yourself with the power of friendship
Yeah.
is what I would take from that. But it was just so, like, it was kind of boggy. It was jumbled up and I didn't quite feel it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Um, and, like, there was clearly a through line, but it wasn't the through line didn't exactly have the peaks and troughs that you expect in a lot of stories.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I think part of that was the '80s aspect. Again, I think part of that is that, I mean, Alice in Wonderland again is very much like that.
Hmm.
Um, so I kind of forgave it. It was like she got her lesson and then immediately took the lesson instead of letting it build or have the lesson grow organically in some
Hmm.
ways. Uh, is almost what how I would say it.
It was kind of like everyone walking up to you for an entire day, you're not paying attention. Them just being like, the sky is blue, the sky is blue, the sky is blue. And, at some point in the latter half of the day, you go, oh, the sky is blue.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that's how story should have progressed.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think this movie would have benefited from choosing a path.
Mm.
It's if it had committed to more of an Alice style or more of an Oz style, it had actually committed to being a musical of some sort
Hmm.
instead of like 2.5 songs.
Yeah, and two of those 2.5 songs didn't seem to be set pieces as opposed to plot pieces.
Yeah. The fact that they were even included, they shouldn't have even been included unless it was like song magic. Could have been a
Mhm.
goblin thing. It sounds like a fairy tale thing.
Yeah,
Or alternatively, if there was singing pieces, like if this was a musical, I would have really enjoyed.
yeah, yeah. It had the right elements for it.
Like just imagine a little like soft personal ballad at the beginning about no one understands her
Yeah,
and she has it so hard, and
yeah.
then that same song evolving to something at the very end where
Oh, there's an amazing "I Want" song in there. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. "I Want" yeah, I could see that working real well. And I think if they had actually went with the musical route, think like because Magic Dance just like
Hmm.
why is this even here? Right? Because it's like it's got like the loosest connection, but it's like, but there's magic and a baby. Get it? And that was like the only connection I could put to the song. But it wouldn't have felt as odd if there was other songs, because then it would just be some weird villain song set piece, which would have made more sense. I mean, I guess that's the thing. Like the Goblin King, from what I can see, everyone who was considered for him was a musician. So they
Hmm.
clearly had this musical idea in their minds.
Or they were just looking for this is popular right now.
Yeah, I guess.
Because why wouldn't they move it up? I mean, it could have been a Bowie thing.
Yeah,
It'd been like you get 2 songs.
yeah.
About three, 2.5.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been. It's hard to say. I haven't been able to find anything specific on that aspect, but
In
um
my mind, because this movie didn't know what it wanted to be, my mind just kept wandering.
mm,
Probably not in like a good way,
okay.
but I definitely thought as soon as there was one song, and I'm like, why isn't this film not just filled with songs? If they filled it with songs, any of the shortcomings you could all of a sudden make exception for.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
in the
they
same way they can for animated films, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I and it's a good way to monologue.
Mhm.
Like you can express more difficult themes and emotions just by singing them.
Yeah.
Not that singing and proper, I forget what they call it, but like sing acting. Singers also do some acting
Yeah.
stage, but I'm not saying that's easy. I'm just saying if they wanted to get something a little, there was
Mhm.
just moments that felt very a host like, and this
Mm.
is a film that I've mentioned several times before. It's a South Korean film where it doesn't know if it wants to be a comedy or a horror movie,
Yeah.
and it just swaps between them.
Yeah. Unlike
Um,
something like Shaun of the Dead.
yeah, where it firmly knows what it is.
Yeah.
In this case, if it had kept more of a quirky vibe with some like tainted darkness, I would have really enjoyed it.
Mm.
Like the whole the worm thing.
Yeah.
Well, like, no, don't go that way, and then the other way.
Yeah.
Like that had a quirkiness to it. There was a bit of like light air to it, but something for something.
Mhm.
They didn't really keep that.
Yeah, they were like there's some messing with her, but not that same thing. And that's why again it keeps jumping into Alice. I guess a bit more Alice than Oz, because Alice was that same way, just kind of a bunch of disjointed scenes,
Hmm.
right? Which I know was a staple of the story writing at the time of when Alice was written. where it's just more of these set piece scenes.
Yeah.
And I really think that that's
Something adapted for like a play.
yeah, because yeah, there's just a lot of those little things. It's like this is a very Alice type scene, like the guards, right, with the riddle of one always lies, one always tells the truth.
Mm.
Right, that's a very Alice type situation.
Well, that
Or you're just talking about the logics and stuff like that.
well, well, that's another thing. That just kind of like feels like another thing that was kind of thrown into the junk drawer of the film.
Mhm.
For people who don't know, a junk drawer is where you put random bits and bobs, usually a drawer in the kitchen.
Yeah,
So if you're looking for something that you have nowhere idea where it would be, like say a random wine opener
yeah,
that doesn't generally drink wine, it's probably in the junk drawer.
yeah,
Um, but that's kind of how this felt. So uh, the door or the guards that were like, one of us lies and one of us tells the truth, didn't follow suit with that thematically either. And they could have with the door knockers.
yeah.
They didn't do anything with the door knockers except have a little like a joke about it.
Yeah, that was one thing. I almost expected the knights and the door knockers to actually repeat itself there, or something similar in that vein. And I was hoping it would have been more accurate with the door knockers, and was a little bit let down that that didn't happen. Um, and the reason why I say I'm kind of disappointed how they did it with the knights was they clearly weren't acting like one always lied and one always told the truth, because they were
Mm,
saying the same things until the actual question happened. So I'm like, and this is how we get to the helping hand situation, because I don't think this actually worked the way it should have worked. That could have potentially been something they were purposefully doing, but if that they didn't make it clear enough in the film,
mhm.
right? So, and she came to the answer like super quick. Would have been also nice to have her puzzle around some of these things a little bit more,
Mm.
right? Just linger not instantly. Here's the challenge. Here's the answer. It's all right to take a breath and have her be confused about how to deal with it.
Well, I mean, one of the what could have improved that in the course of this film is if there was some concept of the actual passage.
Mm,
Like
yes.
the lighting was very static as far of how bright it was. There wasn't night scene,
Yeah.
13th hour.
Yeah.
Um, it's like 5 seconds of her passing back and forth with like a slight fade lighting
Mhm.
would have conveyed like a passage of time where she actually riddled and puzzled it. Or like
Yeah.
that's why I feel it was like very sloppy and very junk drawer.
Yeah.
It was just all these little bits and all things that I would like a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those ones where the framework I think was good.
Hmm.
It's needed it yeah, it just needed that room to breathe, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, for sure.
Or to like, um, because I don't think I would have necessarily changed anything about like much really about how the actual story progressed and how our adventure progressed. Um, I liked that, even with the kind of disjointed, um, nonsensical aspects to it. But have her puzzle. I mean, and she did it with was it Didymus? At
Hmm.
least she puzzled around that one a little bit when about getting past him.
And I like individually, I like that part.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why don't you give us your permission? And he's like, well,
Hmm.
like I really enjoyed that part. I don't,
Yeah.
I wouldn't make any significant changes. What I think it needs is a
Yeah.
lengthen some scenes, shorten some scenes.
Yeah.
Like everything it has is it needs is there.
Hmm.
They just need a cohesive.
Yes. Yeah. That's a very good way to put it. I didn't realize this was based off of a book
Was,
until like today.
was it? Was she actually quoting from the book?
I don't know if she was quoting from the book, but this it was based off a book. Sorry, just confirming it here. That's actually um, part of a quote unquote trilogy of
Hmm.
books, which one of them is Where the Wild Things Are.
What is?
Yeah, it's the same author as Where the Wild Things Are.
And it's like somehow related.
Yeah, apparently, I was reading in the trivia about this here that it was yeah, kind of based off of a trilogy of them. This is one of them. I cannot remember what it's called here. Uh, and yeah, I can't remember quite what it's called. But this and Where the Wild Things Were, one other book, were all the same thing. So this could also kind of run into that same situation that I know we've talked about in a couple other films, where this was probably a very, very short piece
Hmm.
that they had to work on with probably some great visuals, right? Much like Where the Wild Things Were. I mean, I can't believe they made that into a 2.5 hour movie, right? Um, yeah, so the movie is loosely based on a book called Outside Over There, written by Sendak, the same person who wrote Where the Wild Things Were, and the other book is called In the Night Kitchen,
Hmm.
which is a loose trilogy of dreamlike books, which is very much the feeling that I had with this, like that dreamlike quality. So, um, I know nothing of the book, but it could kind of explain a little bit of those pacing type things as well, and explain why the visuals and like the key points are so vivid,
Hmm.
right? But then you have to fill in the bits around it because it's if it's anything like Where the Wild Things Are, there'd be a lot to fill in.
Well, and that's easy to fill in.
Yeah.
Songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I
I
would have
agree.
a
This would have been amazing as a musical.
this if this was a musical, I would be running in a completely different tone right now
Yeah.
because I would give a whole lot of allowances for some things, but because it's so jumbled, I have to be a little bit more critical.
Yeah.
And I was kind of mentioning before that my mind was kind of wandering, but I mean, this this makes the this is the perfect prequel movie.
Mm.
Let me tell you.
All right.
So, selfish Sarah does something, ends up leading to her baby brother's death.
Hmm.
She goes frantic, starts going crazy, and starts hallucinating based off the various imageries in her room. And as
Yeah.
then from that point, she goes to see a psychiatrist who gets addictive pills, and the city starts going by her middle name, which is Marion. And that's how this runs into Requiem for a Dream.
I'm not even mad.
This is exactly where my brain went. I'm like, the only thing that makes sense right now is something because of course my mind goes dark like this when I watch these
Yeah.
type of things. I'm like, she, she did something and her baby brother died, and now she's either doing hard drugs in her bedroom, fascinating, or she's going nuts, or her going crazy may have other.
I, I, I like how you turned this. You took my Alice in Wonderland and you turned it into American McGee's Alice.
'Cause I really like American McGee's Alice.
It's so good.
So I'm just saying, it's the perfect prequel movie.
Yeah. Well, because I'm gonna go off this plot point. Slightly different. Slightly different, but it leads close enough. I think that was probably one of the large and glaring problems to me was no indication of an explanation around the goblins and what was happening there at all. It was just well, she happened to say I wish at the right time, and that did it where there's instead of having kind of a like something indicating that there was a power there or something around it. No indication of magic. And I almost wonder if this is where I had that weird thought in my mind that there was something between her and the Goblin King.
Oh,
It's
because you
almost
were
like I was filling in some sort of meaning or connection there.
yeah, and I mean they definitely implied there was implications that the goblin be with
Hmm.
Sarah, Marion Silver, uh, and I would have liked to feel more impact to that whole the Goblin King, like his whole monologue about like wanting to like give her everything, just get about your brother, let me give you everything, let me rule you, or what
Hmm.
have you.
Yeah.
It definitely it's kind of this reminds this kind of reminds me of the second wall when we're talking about Carol and Tuesday. It's like you're not a 16-year-old girl. But I'm wondering if there was some daydreaming, some selfishness, some like girl experiencing sexuality and like just projecting this into this like dream world.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I'm just kind of thinking this now, so I don't have this as a fully grown thought.
Yeah.
Wondering if that projection is the Goblin King,
Hmm.
something to be desired in that manner,
Yeah, it could be.
because everything else is like the her projecting other facets of escapism from her immediate surroundings.
Hmm.
This movie has a lot of would likes. A big one is the music box ballerina.
Hmm.
Like story wise, there was significance to it. They didn't touch on it at all.
Yeah.
That was given to her by her mother, and they live with her stepmother now. And like she, in the end, she puts it into a drawer and closes the drawer.
Yeah.
But why wasn't that projected? Stream world.
It was ballroom scene.
Oh,
She was she was that ballerina, or that's how
I
that's the
think you're
connection
right.
I made.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah. But again, it's just like I said. It's like I know that music box had ties to her mom, but that's because I was reading trivia after the fact.
Hmm.
Um, so it's a movie made up of spaghetti incidents, um, and it has too many of them. So you know there's a world, but because it's too loose and too little few connections between it, that you don't quite get the cohesive plot.
Hmm. And again, just to like repeat myself over and over, because all that filler could have been done in song.
Yeah.
And I mean, they made Cats into a movie.
Oh God.
So I
Yeah.
mean, you could throw like four more songs into this thing and have it just be like I'm probably not gonna watch Labyrinth again anytime soon.
Mm.
But if I saw something like a local production house doing a musical
Yeah.
of the Labyrinth, I'd go see that
Yeah.
in an instant.
Yeah. They're making all of these 80s and 90s movies into musicals, so maybe.
This this should have been the first one.
I'm trying to just trying to remember. This could have been a timing thing too, like talking about the idea of it being a full musical, because like this predates the golden age, or like the Disney Renaissance with like the Little Mermaid and all of that.
Hmm.
So I think I I think a lot of mm, I think kind of musicals were out at around this time. Like I can't really think of a musical in the early 80s immediately jumping to me.
It's just the inclusion of song in this one.
Yeah.
To me, it was so out of place. Like you're watching the Santa Claus with Tim Allen,
Hmm.
and then 2/3 of the way through the movie, he starts singing about how it's great to be Santa Claus.
Yeah.
You're like, where'd this come from? It would make more sense in the Santa Claus with Tim Allen.
Yeah. Yeah, it would.
Because that's a goofy movie, so him breaking out in a song would make sense in that aspect. In this case, it's just like, I'm David Bowie and I'm singing.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't mind the singing with those red bird things at all. That
Well, it was thematically correct.
Yeah, exactly. It was just such a weird, out there, nonsensical what that
Well,
it fit perfectly there.
that's the reason why that was probably more frightening to me as an adult.
Mm.
Is it like my brain couldn't make sense of it in the medium? Like, this is when you tune into a Saturday morning cartoon for kids nowadays and you go, what is going on? I'm an elderly person. I have get off my lawn. Like, that's the kind of moment I had there, just like ripping with my mentality.
Yep.
But all the stuff that was quote unquote dark had my kind of humor to it.
Mhm.
I will give it that. The stuff that was more dark had more of a there's something very deadpan going on. Then there's that foil.
Yeah.
And the crib in the goblin scene was the perfect example of that.
Mm.
She's being super serious, overacting, but what she's
Hey,
doing,
Sharon.
yeah. And then the goblins, and they're kind of like goofy, and they want her to, make that wish.
Yeah. And I found that introduction of them, as I said before, it's like I just had the biggest, dumbest smile on my face watching some of this stuff. And that was definitely a part of it. The goblins and pretty much anything with Didymus.
Yeah, I mean, I was keen on Sir Didymus because of the dog.
Yeah.
I mean, running around on a dog was pretty entertaining, and I do like that character that's bigger than his britches, I guess you could say.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh,
He was adorable in that.
yeah.
Like scaredy cat dog, ever courageous Sir Didymus.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I've got you completely surrounded. um, I don't know. Maybe it was just like the callbacks to Black Knight from Monty Python, or kind of that Don Quixote
Hmm.
type character. Just like uh, I'm sold by this. I'm sold that you think you're winning. um, so yeah, just like a biggest dumbest smile. uh, let's see. Creature. I really liked a lot of the creature design throughout the
I
film.
mean, we
It's Jim
should,
Henson.
yeah, we should cover it, but it's Henson, right?
Yeah,
Like, of course, it's gonna be good.
yeah.
They are rulers of this type of,
It's very true, and this very much shows why.
yeah, like the
Uh,
kings and queens of practical effects. There,
yeah, it's true. Can't really. There's some nice set design stuff that they did too. One that really jumped out at me. So after we had the false alarms,
oh yeah,
the uh, there was the scene with the Goblin King and Hogwarts again, where like they just had like the three rocks that made the
oh
Goblin King's face.
yeah, I really like
Like,
that.
yeah, apparently it took them ages to get that set up right, because it actually was like the three rocks and just a perspective trick.
Yeah,
And um,
apparently they did that a couple times, but I only caught that one.
yeah, it was the only one I caught. It was one of the big things that made me go, like, I kind of want to go back and rewatch to see where they had some of these other things.
Hmm.
You know, just happened to miss because it was really cool seeing it and seeing how it was done. have them walk through it. It was, something that would be obviously CG'd now to give the effect without actually having the effect.
Yeah, when everything
um,
is done on like a single soundstage.
yeah.
There was a few parts in the sets where I had a worry that they were just going to reuse the same thing.
Hmm.
Because of course I didn't remember anything about the movie
Yeah.
and when she went into the labyrinth, I'm like, this would have been a cheap film to make. Because I just assumed that most of it was going to be in that.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately use the same hall with different, like, chopped up pieces everywhere.
Yeah. No, they
It was
definitely stuck
varied.
away from that. Like, yeah, I appreciated that. It was
I think that was an entire
very
goblin
good.
village.
Yeah, there's the entire Goblin village. I mean, you had the swamp. The swamp looked pretty expansive. Um, like there's kind of the hedge mage section, which again looked very expansive. Where she meets Ludo, right? Like, I was impressed with that. Um, I mean, it was clearly filmed on a soundstage, but I mean, again, that's a very 80s
Yeah.
80s look. So I forgive it for that.
Well, it's unfortunate for me that I couldn't forgive it for more.
Mm,
I really would have liked to, but just kept falling short in all these like different little ways.
yeah.
I wasn't out of my seat.
Mm,
It's not like I wanted to, like pause it or stop it, get up and do something. But I was definitely not where I should have been in the movie. It wasn't able to captivate me in that way.
okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Just because of the like a lot of the disharmony.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there was a lot of that, and I think again, just slight re-edits would, or making it a musical.
Oh, just making a musical.
Yeah, but that's a much bigger change in a couple slight edits.
I mean,
Should have been a musical.
it should have been a musical.
Hashtag release the musical cut.
Roger. We go to Twitter. Can we make that trending?
Not until the Angela cut's trending.
As far as the spoopiness goes from the perspective of a child, I would still give this one like 5 out of 7 black cats.
Okay.
I think it maintains. I can identify why I was spooked, but it doesn't hold true now.
Okay.
As far as
I
the Hmm?
I was just gonna give my black cat rating first,
Yeah.
if that's fine. I actually think I'd probably put this closer to 3 out of 7 black cats.
Hmm.
And the big reason for this is other films around it that I can think of that would have creeped me out more. Things
Hmm.
like things like Ghostbusters, using a lot of similar type effects. I think Jim Henson did some of the ghosts there too, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, very possible, right? But he had a lot of those things there at the same time, which was again kind of the puppets, but definitely got the creepier aspect for it. And
Hmm.
granted, horror comedy, so you expect to have a little bit more of that.
For sure.
But I think that would have taken away from my horror if I had seen this when I was younger.
Hmm. As far as the movie itself,
Hmm.
uh, unfortunately, I can't rate it high. I would even give this one 6 out of 13 hours.
Okay.
I had that same dumb smile
Yeah.
at some places, but
Yeah.
it was just so disjointed to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, it could be one of those things that, I'm a bit smooth brained and not always super smart. So I need things spelled out for me. Tell you what, musical, getting at least 12 out of 13 hours.
Yeah. I think. No, I think your rating's actually fair. Um, again, with the caveat that I think I think this is still a movie worth a watch.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, again, this is kind of that birthplace of Jennifer Connelly for acting. It's the earliest role I actively know her in. Um, the stuff that it does well, it does very well. Is it going to get that rewatch? Not necessarily.
If it was a fully reconstructed Alice,
Hmm.
I'd probably have enjoyed it much more.
Yeah.
Like if they actually leaned into that.
Yes.
They went like, this is what we are, rehashing Alice, but in this new way.
Yeah.
Kind of like some different twist.
Yeah. I would say this was a better live action Alice than, the Johnny Depp Alice.
I haven't seen it, but I mean, probably would.
It was Johnny Depp and Helen Bonham Carter being Johnny Depp and Lena Bonham Carter.
Hmm. Okay.
Like,
Yeah,
I
just
mean, it wasn't bad. It's just I think this was closer to the tone of Alice. Um, so yeah, that's actually it. Yeah, like lean into that just that bit more. Commit to something instead of having these kind of three or four different ideas that you're not quite sure on, and uh, it almost makes me wonder if it had um, that same multiple writers syndrome.
well, it did have a Muppets writer and Python writer,
Mm,
Henson, Henson,
yeah,
rewriting the book. So it's entirely possible that all the things that we need from this are in the original story.
yeah,
Could end up reading this and be like, oh, that's the one thread that would have.
yeah.
It, with how disjointed it was, I think play musical Alice in Wonderland and go for something and stick with it.
Mhm. Yeah, because you leaned into it all. I mean, you gave the it was all like so close to being there.
It just leaves you wanting, but not in
Yeah,
that I want more of this. You're like, want something in addition. What I'm
yeah,
saying. I don't know if that's the correct way to express it, but that's kind of what I got from it.
yeah.
Which makes
Um,
makes me wonder why this kind of pulls in, because there is kind of like still a cult following to
yeah,
this. Is one of the this is firmly in the line of like cult followings that I don't understand.
mhm,
Like genetic opera.
yeah,
I don't get the cult following on that as well.
mm.
Like, oh, there's some leather and it's a bit morbid.
Which is funny because I love that movie, and you're the one who introduced it to me. Look, you get to see Paris Hilton's face fall off, and Anthony Stewart Head singing. He's got an amazing fucking voice. That sells me.
It just,
And Sarah Brightman.
I mean, Sarah Brightman. Sarah Brightman has this. There's this remix of Eden with the Gregorian master. It's like, hmm,
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
yeah, top 10 song of all.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess
And one of the best anime music videos of all time.
Ruth
It's definitely that.
deep.
The
So
other thing that I was just thinking, and this is something that might put context a little bit more to Labyrinth with like the cult followings and such around it. Um, there's two contemporaries I can think of, but I can't quite remember again enough of the story to see how this would fit in between them. And that's the Dark Crystal and the Neverending Story. Because I feel like I remember the Neverending Story feeling disjointed like this as well. And I can't remember Dark Crystal clear enough.
which is funny because the other one that we almost watched instead of this was the
Yeah.
might have been part two.
Mm,
I couldn't remember which one it was, and if it was the second, I didn't want. So
mm, yeah.
it was the one where there's like these big clunky robot soldier things. Kind of looks like the guy at the beginning of the Fifth Element, but
Mm.
think it might have been the second one.
I think that's the second one. Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, the story's never ending. It's like
No,
it's
that's
just
never
in
any
this.
story.
Yeah, yeah. It's all really just one movie. That they split into two parts, obviously. Um,
But what was the first one you said again?
Dark Crystal.
Yeah, Dark Crystal, which is really interesting because they did a follow-up series to the Dark Crystal,
Hmm.
and a friend of mine also did kind of like an in-depth discussion and podcast.
Okay.
See if I can find that. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
I really went into this hoping I would like it more.
Mm.
I know I can be harsher on older movies because I'm firmly looking at my perspective from,
Yeah.
like, if the acting's stiff, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's how they did it in the 50s.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like I'm gonna watch this with the heart that I have now.
Yeah.
In this case, I did try to watch it with the heart I had as a child,
Yeah.
so I could understand the spooky bits and the scary bits, and I think I identified them.
Yeah.
But I really do wish I had like fallen in love with this. Now, if we can get some type of confirmation that indeed her name is Sarah Marion Silver, then I think I would have to apologize about being so mean to this one.
Yeah.
With that, this has been Beardy and the Beast Spooktober special. If you've enjoyed the cast, give us a like or a follow and join us in the discussion in the comments or on our Discord. Next week, experience the terrifying finale of our Spooktoberfest with Invaders from Mars with guest Jamie from the sludge metal band Heron. Later.